for your tool belt and something to keep in your back pocket. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next video. All right, so second to last video here in our Linux series, and this one is a very important one. So we're going to cover a few things. I want to cover how to install files, how to install updates, and how to get files from GitHub. All these are going to be very important and things that you're going to encounter as a pen tester all the time. So from a Linux perspective, let's say that you want to update your system and you're in the terminal. Well, what you can do is you can say something along the lines of apt update, and we'll say also apt upgrade when you're done with that. So what this is going to do is this is going to go out, and you can see these archive.linux, and I'll scroll back up here. And all these tools need to be installed, but this archive.linux.edu, so this is what's called a repository. So we're going out to these repositories and we're saying, hey, what's been updated lately and what do we need to download? And you can see, okay, these packages that are automatically installed, no longer required. We can auto remove them if we need to. And then we have all these new packages that need to be installed. If you look through the list, it's quite a bit. And then we've got the packages that'll also be upgraded through here as well. So we have all these updates, upgrades, etc. If we want to perform this, it's going to take up 871 megabytes of additional disk space, and it will probably take a little bit of time to download, upgrade, etc. So if you want to do this, go ahead and push your update. You absolutely don't have to be successful in the course, but just to provide clarification and understanding of how it's done and what it's doing, just wanted to point that out. Now, let's say we just wanted a tool, a specific tool. You see all these things in here. A lot of them are related to like Python, which is interesting because I do want to install a Python tool. So let's install a tool called pip. So what we're going to do is we're going to say apt install, and then the tool is called pip, but it is python-pip like this. So type that in, hit enter, and it's going to go check for it. It's going to look for it, and it found it, which is great. If it weren't to find it, it would say something a little different. We can show you, like say, just hit some numbers in there. Say unable to locate that package. So you'll know you're on the right track with the package name here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually hit yes to install this. It's going to go out and download everything we need for pip. And you're going to see why pip is important here. So there is pip and there's pip3. Now both of those go out and do some installs for us. And we're going to go ahead and just say yes. And those installs are related to Python. So we're going to use a lot of tools in this course that are related to Python. And it's going to install those tools for us. So pip is for Python, pip3 is for Python 3. Now Python 3 is the latest and greatest. Python 2 is actually being deprecated in 2020 or end of service in 2020. So a lot of things are actually moving away from that now. So when we get into the Python section of the course, we're actually going to be working completely in Python 3 for this reason solely. So while we wait for this, let's go ahead and go out to the interwebs. And I'm just going to go to applications up here and then Firefox terminal. So from here, as an update to the course, I want to introduce a tool and teach you also how to install a tool. So this is kind of serving two purposes here. So I want to go out to Google, and what we're going to do is we're going to look for a tool called Pimp My Kali, P-I-M-P My Kali, just like that. Now this is written by a guy named DeWalt. He is a pillar of our community in terms of our Discord community. He's very helpful when it comes to the course. If you've ever been in the course Discord or looked at it, you will probably see that he is a part of it and he's there and he's helping out. He's fantastic. Now this is up to date. He does a great job of utilizing this, and what he's done is he's taken the new Kali Linux, which anything from 2020.1 and onward has kind of had some issues here or there, and he's created a nice script to fix all of those issues. Okay, so we don't have to go through and troubleshoot a lot of things throughout the course. this script just kind of goes in and fixes a lot of things that were wrong. So I really am appreciative of this script because it is fantastic. What we can do is learn from this as well though. So what we can do is we could take this code and we could just copy it here. Okay, we can hit Control A, Control C, or you can hit copy on the clipboard. And what I want you to do is I want you to go out to a terminal. We're gonna go ahead and just sudo switch user, okay, and enter in our password. Now, we're going to install something from GitHub. So what we're doing, and this is very common by the way, you're gonna see this happen throughout the course. We're gonna put this into a folder. So what I wanna do is change directories to a folder called opt, O-P-T, just like this, and hit enter. And we're going to put our file here. Now this is very common. A lot of people tend to put their downloads or installs into the opt folder. It's just a place to keep all of these. So this is a common thing to do and a good practice to get into if you've never done this before. So now what we're gonna do is we're just going to type in git clone and then we're gonna paste it. So you can do Control-Shift-V as a shortcut or right click and paste, hit enter, and you can see it started cloning. Now, once it's done cloning, all you have to do is change directory into the file name right here, or the folder name. So cd, we'll just type in pimp my Kali, tab, hit enter, okay? And from here, we can just do ls, look what's in here. Okay, so you can see pimpmykali.sh. We're gonna go ahead and just run that. So ./pimpmykali.sh, just like that, hit enter. All right, and we're going to run 0 here. Okay, and this is going to take a minute. So it's gonna go through and run all these upgrades that you see here. So what it's doing is it's fixing some of the issues that we have. So we're fixing Go when we have to install Go later. We're fixing Impacket, which has some issues on its own in 2020.1 and later. And we're also enabling root login. So there's a lot of things that we're doing here that help us out throughout the course and is just a nice overall upgrade. There are some other features here. So as you'll see, we have the ability to downgrade from Metasploit 6. So if you do encounter issues in the course, you can come back and downgrade to Metasploit 5, which is what we are currently doing. But as you go through the course, Metasploit 6 might be working or more functional. As these tools upgrade and things go on, you know, you have to kind of evaluate what's working, what's not working, and take it from there. So as the script gets updated constantly, be on the lookout for these things as they get added or removed. But for now, we're just running the 0. We're going through and just adding all these different tools in. You should see it scrolling along like this and should function pretty straightforward. So go ahead and let this install. The big takeaway here, and once you're done, go ahead, we're gonna move on to the next video, but the big takeaway here is that you should be comfortable with using the apt package to go out and download tools. You should be comfortable with upgrading your system through apt, and you should be comfortable now with going out to the web, GitHub at least, and going and downloading a folder off, or cloning a repository off of GitHub and installing it on your own. It's very straightforward. If the GitHub is good, the GitHub will tell you, hey, here's how you install it, and it'll say these are your instructions. Like right here, it says here, git clone, cd into it, ./pimpmykali. Straightforward. And most GitHubs are like this. So as we download tools in the course, you're gonna get more practice with this and understand it better. But from here, you're going to just take it and go. And here you can see something that we talked about is that we lost the ability in 2020.1 to use root. This will allow you to run root in Kali if you want. Here, we're just gonna type in no, unless you know what you're doing. You could type in yes, but again, as stated in the sudo video, if you are not familiar with Linux, it's best practice just to keep hanging out in sudo and utilizing it that way as a low-level user. And again, we're just gonna let this run and I will catch you over in the next video. So there's one more tool I want to install because I use it quite a bit throughout the course as my go-to note editor. And I'll talk some alternatives as well, but I just want to make sure that you have it installed and you have it at your disposal if you want to use it. It's not the only text editor in Linux, and I'll show you those options, but that tool is going to be called gedit. So if you just do apt install gedit like this, actually let's do a sudo apt install like that.
enter in our password, and then go ahead and just hit enter for yes. We're gonna let this install, and it should be pretty quick. Now, what this is going to allow us to do is just have a text editor option. You're gonna see this in use in the next video, but we get to say gedit test.txt as an example, and it'll bring up this text editor. Plain and simple, that's all it is. Now you'll get some warnings like this. If you see a warning, just ignore it, don't even worry about it. As long as you're able to get into the text editor and edit, that's fine. I'm gonna close this out without saving. Another thing that you can do is you can use mousepad and just say test.txt, that's fine. And you can use nano, test.txt, same thing, and you'll see these throughout the course, so don't worry about having to memorize them right now, but there's a few different text editing options. I just wanted to install gedit and show you gedit because I use it so much throughout the course, and they removed it from Kali Linux in 2020.1, I believe. So I just want you to be familiar with it and know how to use it if you want to. So that's it. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next video.
Okay, so this is my second time recording this video. The first time I forgot to turn my microphone on and performed for my cat. So she approved of it. Let's see if you approve of it the second time around now that I have a little bit of practice. So what we're going to be talking today is we're going to be talking about viewing, creating, and editing files. So I've already showed you the echo command. If you recall, we used echo to create a file, right? We created a hello.txt. And we can just echo hello out to the terminal. We could say echo hello, and it'll say hello back. So what we can do with echo is we can use it to write to a file. So if we were to say echo hey, and then we write it to hey.txt, well, we can look and see that hey.txt is here. And you can see my files from the previous one, so I'm trying to come up with more ways of saying hello. But we're going to use hey.txt here. So if we cat hey.txt, all cat does is print out to the screen what is in a file. It says hey. Okay, so let's say we want to append cat, or we want to append hey.txt. Well, we can tab up here. What if we just say hey again? And we've got this greater than symbol here, and we're just putting it into the hey.txt file. Well, that didn't work. We didn't append it, we actually overwrote it. So what can we use to actually append this here? What we can do is we could say hey again, right? Just to give us something different. And we can add a second greater than symbol here. So now if we cat the file, you can see that we actually appended to the end of it. So this becomes incredibly useful when we are either adding stuff to a list, say we're gathering IP addresses and we just want to combine our lists, or when we're creating a series of commands and we're going to use those commands to send all at once. We're going to cover that later when we talk about file transfers in the penetration testing section, where we use a set of commands like this on a Windows machine to actually transfer files via FTP. It's just so much easier than typing them all in one by one. We can create a little document and run the document. So this becomes useful when we have a series of commands, and for other reasons as well, as you'll learn as you go on in your Linux career. So we've talked about echo and we've talked about cat. So let's talk about some other ways to create a file. We can use something called touch and just say new file.txt. And if we ls, you could see that new file.txt is here. But if we cat new file, there's nothing in there because we haven't put anything in there yet. So there's a few things that we can do. We could use echo and append the file, right? We could also use a tool called nano. Now nano is a terminal text editor. There are other terminal text editors like Vi and Vim. I don't prefer those personally. I like nano the most. Some people have their preferences. So I encourage you to play around with any of them as you wish. Vi and Vim are the other two. But for this course, we're going to be using nano. So if I say nano new file.txt, I could type whatever I want in here. And we're going to be using Nano a lot to create scripts, to create Python scripts, and to edit shellcode as we get into a little bit of exploit development. So I'm going to hit Control X, I'm going to hit Y for saving, and then we'll save it to new file.txt. If we cat this, now it says, hey, I could type whatever I want in here. So that's one way of editing it. Another way of editing it is using a graphical interface. So we can use gedit and say new file. And if you don't like using a terminal, you're more than welcome to use gedit here. Just type in new line here and save it. And I like using gedit. It's a lot cleaner because I can, highlight and delete. I don't have to use my keyboard to navigate around like I do in the terminal. So if you have the option to use gedit, for sure, but sometimes you're going to be on another machine that's not your own or is headless and doesn't have a GUI, that you're going to have to use Nano. So get comfortable using both. So we save this. Let's go ahead and cat it out and see what happens. Okay, you can see that the new line is in there. So really that's the overview that I wanted to cover. So just know that you can create files pretty much using Echo, Touch, and actually you can create files using Nano as well. If you say Nano, this is new.txt, I'll just say hello, Control X, save it. If you ls, you can see this is new.txt is right here. So you can use all of these tools in different ways to create files. It's completely up to you how you want to do it. Personally, when I'm creating a file, I use Nano and I just create a new shell script, Python script, text document that way. You could also do it using gedit as well. So just know that we're going to be using these a lot and try to get comfortable with these. And from here, we're going to be moving into controlling Kali services. So we're just going to briefly talk about what services you need running on boot and how to do that.
Last video in this section, and this is going to be one of my favorites. So what we're going to be talking about is scripting with Bash. I'm going to show you some cool tricks that we can do to kind of narrow down some of the results that we get, and then I'm going to show you how you can automate some of that process, and we'll take that and even write out some for loops and one-line loops, which this might not make any sense right now, and that's absolutely okay, but by the time the video is done, hopefully it does. So the first thing I want to show you is I want to show you how we're going to write a ping sweep. So we're going to write a ping sweeper. Basically, we're going to go out and say, I want to ping a device. If that device is alive, go ahead and show me that result. And we're going to sweep an entire network. So what we're going to do first is we're going to identify a device that's alive so we can test this out and then build upon that. So you can go ahead and type in ifconfig and then just hit enter. Now my Ethernet here is on a NATed network. So I'm running through a different IP address subnet here. So this one is 192.168.57.150. My actual IP address is on a .4.x here. So I'm going to, for this example, I'm going to be pinging 192.168.4.29. However, and you can see here's the ping that we're getting back. However, if you are unsure of a IP address in your house that is active or your subnet in your house, that's okay. You can just run 57.1 for this example. You might not get a lot of return results. However, you might only get 1 or 2 when we do this sweep. So I advise you to figure out what your IP address is. That's a good challenge anyway. And if you are familiar with networking, which you should be at this point, then you should be able to determine the IP address of your home network. But if you do not do that, then you can use 57.1 or whatever your IP address is here on this third octet. So that will also work if you see that. All right, so I'm going to clear this. Now, what are we noticing when we're pinging? We're pinging this address and we're getting some data back. Now, if we ping an active address, you can see that we get, okay, 64 bytes from 192.168.4.29. It's saying it's active. We're getting details back. If we were to ping something, let me do like 41, where we just don't get any data back. Okay, and let's try this one more time. Let's try this a different way. Let's do like a count of 1. -C of 1, we'll do a count of 1. It's going to try to send one packet over and see if it works. Nothing's happening, right? It's trying to transmit that packet. you could see that it's getting 0 received here, where here is getting 4 received. No data is coming back. It's just not doing anything for us. So the thing that we can identify here is, what's the big difference? If we look at line 1 and 2 versus line 1 and 2, what are we seeing when we get data back? Well, the big difference here is two of them, I guess. We see that we get this response, right? That's a big difference. And then down here, it'll say, hey, we received some packets if it's not 0. Now, the easy way to do this is to look at a line that says, hey, we received data, which is this line here, okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to narrow this down just a little bit. What we're going to say is we're just going to do a ping of 1 time. So I'm going to clear this. I'm going to bring it back to this like this. I'm going to do a count of 1. And that should just ping once. And that's perfect. We don't need to ping endlessly. We just want to make sure we can ping once and then we're done. Okay, and then from here, I'm going to put this into a text file. I'm just going to call this ip.txt, just like that. So when I cat out ip.txt, now you can see that I have this file. It's stored. I don't have to run the command again. We're good to go. So what we're going to do now is we can take this and then we can start gathering data based off of what we see here. So what I want to do is I want to just extract this one line here, the 64 bytes from 192.168.4.29. And the best way to do that is with a command called grep. So grep is going to look for a specific term or phrase, and we can do that, and it's going to pull down any line that has that term or phrase. So if I say grep here, and then I just put in quotation 64 bytes, like this, now when I cat out this, all I'm pulling down is this line, and it's even highlighting it for us. It's saying, here's the line that we see, 64 bytes from 192.168. Okay, so we've extracted just the one line. And why am I extracting this line? Well, if we're building out a ping sweeper, what I want to do is I want to sweep every single IP within a specific subnet. So say this .4, right? I want to ping 4.1.2.3 all the way through 254, 255. I want to see if I can get through all the IP addresses in a subnet. So what we're going to do is we're going to ping every single one of them and say, hey, are you up? Are you there? And we're going to do it with a count of 1. And we're going to say, are you there? Okay. And if they're there, they're going to say, yeah, I'm here. 64 bytes. Here's my response. And it's going to say 64 bytes from this IP address. So we want to extract the IP addresses to say, yeah, we're alive. That's basically our goal here. So when we run this on a bigger scale, which is what we're going to do, we're going to need to grep out this information and extract this information to where we only just get the IP address back. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start narrowing down and grabbing this IP address, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to take this all in one instance and run it and then extract IP addresses. So from here, what I want to do is I want to do another command. So every time we pipe, we're saying, hey, run this command, then with that command, run this command, then also run this command too. So we're going to keep running this command on top of this to narrow things down. So here's what we're doing here. We're going to run a command called cut. And with cut, we're going to say, I want to cut something out of this. We need to provide it what is called a delimiter. So we do a -D like this. And the delimiter I'm going to use is a space. And then I'm going to say -F for field, and then I'm going to say 4. Okay, what is this doing? Well, it's saying, hey, I want to cut this line that you're getting back on a space. So the delimiter is a space. So here's a space, here's a space, here's a space. And it says, I want to count up to 4 to grab that data. So 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. So if we say 4 here, like this, we hit enter, we're grabbing that specific IP address because we're doing it by spaces. If we did it on 3, what do you think we're going to grab? We're going to grab the word from. So you can see here's from. So what I want to do is grab the IP. So we're going to use this cut just like this, use our delimiter, and then get to the correct field position that we want to grab the IP address. All right, so we've got the IP address. Now there's only one thing wrong here with this IP address, is that there is a little colon on the end of it. We just want this without a colon at all. We want it just like this. Now there's a couple ways we can do this. We could use something called sed. Sed's a little bit complicated and a little bit advanced, I would say, for where we're at right now. So I'd rather teach you an easier way to do this. And that is called translate. So with translate, all we're going to do is we're going to do one more pipe like this, and we're just going to say tr for translate, a dash d for a delimiter again, and then we're going to say we want to get rid of this. And that's it. We're just getting rid of this. Okay, so if we run this one more time, now you can see that we've successfully extracted this IP address out. That's our goal. That's all we wanted to do. Now, how can we apply this to something bigger? How can we make this part of a bigger script? That is the question. And we're going to do that. So what I want you to do is I just want you to copy this, okay? Copy this entire line. And we're going to go into a mouse pad. So let's copy this selection. And I'm going to clear my screen. I'm just going to say mouse pad. And we're going to call this ipsweep.sh. Okay, so this is going to be a bash script. And I'm going to make this bigger. And the first thing we're going to do with our bash script is we have to declare that it's a bash script. We're going to say hash bang right here, or shebang is what we'd call this, /bin/bash. This allows the machine to know when we run this allows bash to know, hey, we're calling this, here's the location of bash, this is what we're running with the script. You're also going to see this when we use Python as well. You'll see the declaration here at the top, or when we're calling this out. So I'm going to go ahead and Control S and save this. That'll add some nice color to this, so when we're coding this out, we get to see in color. I like that a lot. I'm going to actually make this a little bit smaller and then make this like this here so we can get the whole picture. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to paste in what we just wrote. So I'm just going to Control V here and paste that in. So we don't need to do a cat of an IP address here. In this instance, instead, we're going to change this back. We're going to ping. Remember, we want to ping every device in the network. So we want to ping, say if we're pinging 192.168.4.x, okay, we want to ping that. And we can leave this like this for now. Don't worry about changing anything here. This is just going to be a placeholder. We're going to do a little bit of extra syntax here to make this work. So we're going to write what is called a for loop. So we're going to say for, and I'll explain what this does here in a second. You're also going to see this again when we get into Python and coding. And so you'll be able to understand more and more about loops and what for loops are, while loops, etc. They're very, very useful and very common in coding and scripting. So I'm going to say for IP in, and then I'm going to say sequence 1 through 254. Now, very important, this character here is not an apostrophe. Okay, this is not an apostrophe. This is the little line, I don't know what it's called. It's above the tilde next to your escape button on your keyboard. So it's this right here, okay? It's like a backwards apostrophe almost. I'm sure there's a term for it, I just don't know it. So you come in here and you say, okay, for IP address in sequence 1 through 254. And I'm gonna explain what all this does in a second. I want you just to type this out for now. I want you to say do, all right? And then I want you to come down here and we're going to say ampersand on this line, and we're going to say done. I'm going to explain what all this means. Okay, so this is a loop that we've just created. What we're saying is for the IP address, and we're just declaring this. This could be Bob if you wanted to. I'm just making it a name or a term that's easy for us to remember. So we're going to say for IP. But if you want to call this Bob, call it Bob. For IP in sequence 1 through 254. So what sequence is doing is it's saying, hey, I want to count everything from 1 to 254. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way to 254. This for loop means I'm going to do this every single time. So for IP in 1, for IP in 2, for IP in 3, we're going to run this command until we're done. So until this sequence has run 255 times, it's done. Okay, and now we're going to say, I want to do a count of $IP. So what we're saying here is for IP in sequence 1 through 254, go ahead and do a ping -C for a count of 1, 192.168.4, 254. And here we're going to say .1, .2, .3. Every time this loops over and over and over, it's going to be incrementing that number through this sequence. That's all we're doing. This is a basic loop, okay? So we're going to keep going through and through and through. Now, this will work. If you plugged in your hard-coded IP address here, this will absolutely work. Now, we can improve this just a little bit if we want to. So what's going on here is what we're going to say is if we wanted to run this, we would just do // and then IP sweep. Okay. And this would work. That's fine. But we can make this a little bit better from a coding perspective. We can come in here and we can give this a $1. And that means argument 1. So what we're saying here is I want to give an argument instead. So if you want to be technical, this first // IP sweep.sh, that is argument 0. So you can consider this $0. Argument 1 would be what you type after that. So this would be argument 1, argument 2, etc. So in this case, what we can do is we could say, I want to run 192.168.4 like this, and this will run the .1, .2, .3 after it. So you provide the argument, it places that here in argument 1, and then it does the rest for you. So this way you can specify your network, and if you wanted to ping multiple networks, you don't have to come back in here and keep changing this. It just works. So super easy. This is a great little script for a /24 type subnet. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and try running this really quick. I'm gonna just Control S, save this. I'm gonna close it. We're gonna do a chmod +X on IP sweep. If it'll allow us to, we might have to do a, okay, let's do LSLA real quick, make sure it worked. It sure did. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're going to run the IP sweep, and we're going to say 192.168. You just put in your IP here, and I'm gonna run that. All right. And you could see all the devices that are coming back within my network here. I'm gonna go ahead and hit Control C, cancel this out. And so this is grabbing all the different devices in my network. Now that's great. That works out really well. But what we can do is improve this. What if I typed in a, what if I didn't type anything at all? What if I just hit enter here? Now I'm just getting all kinds of pings unknown, and it's going off of some of the stuff I was doing before, but it just causes all kinds of issues and errors, right? So you can see I'm trying to hit Control C, it's taking its time to break. Here we get issues because we're just allowing any sort of argument here. What we need to do is we need to fix this up just a little bit. So what we can say is we can come back in here and just go mousepad ipsweep.sh and come in here and let's add a little bit extra. Oh, and I also left this in here. Don't leave this in here. That's why that was running twice. Okay, so what we're doing here is we need to add in a statement. What we're going to do is we're going to add in a if statement. If statements are conditions. We're saying, hey, if this condition is met, do something for us. If it's not met, then go ahead and do something else. All right. So we're going to say if, and we're going to just put in here $1 is equal to nothing, then we're going to go ahead and just say then echo you forgot an IP address. Echo syntax, something like this. We'll just say IP sweep.sh and we'll go 192.168.4 like that. Okay. And then if we did do this correctly, if we do have an argument inside of argument 1, then we're going to say else, do all of this here and be done. And then we're going to end our if statement with fi. Now, this script, or this resemblance of this script, is not one of my own, by the way. This goes credit to something I've modified over time, but the original credit definitely goes to Georgia Weidman. I remember seeing this in her course a long, long time ago when I was first getting started, and she did a great job of teaching this. This is just a modification of this script, so I just want to make sure that all credit goes to her. But looking at this, let's break this down really quick before we run this again. We've got an if statement. We said if argument 1 doesn't equal anything, then you're going to echo back out and say, hey, you forgot an IP address. Here's the syntax. If it does include something, then we're going to go ahead and come in here and say, let's run our for statement, our for loop, and run through it. And then we're going to end our if here. The only thing that I'm doing uniquely here is I'm including this ampersand, which is going to run this command multiple times at once. This is a good way to explain it. Basically, we have a couple ways of doing this. We could say like this. We can put a command here, and this will run one at a time. It'll say, okay, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. This allows multiple instances of this loop to run at once and just speeds things up. I can show you the difference between that. So I'm going to go ahead and just Control S, save this. I'm going to go ahead and just run this script real quick. Now let's try running it without anything here. Okay, now look, it says you forgot an IP address. So look, we did that correctly. Now let's go ahead and add the 192.168.4, run it. And you can see, okay, it's sweeping, but it's taking its sweet time. Especially for the IP addresses that are going to hang, like if I don't have a .2 or .3, it's going to take a while. So I'm going to Control C and get out of this if it'll let me. And it looks like it's actually going to hang. So what we can do is we can come back in. I'm going to open a new tab real quick just while that's waiting. And I'm just going to say mousepad, and we're just going to go back into ipsweep.sh. It's in this folder. There we go. Okay. So from here, I'm going to change this back to the ampersand, and I'm going to save it. I just want you to see the difference really quick and why I run it like this. So ipsweep.sh 192.168.4. You can see it's picking everything up really fast. All right. What I can do now is I can run this and then store this into like ips.txt, something like that. Just like found IP addresses. Okay, so now if I cat ips.txt, I have all the IP addresses I just found, and I found them that fast versus this, which may still be going. And it is, and I can't even kill it. I'm just gonna close this out. Okay, so this is the big difference there with that ampersand and the speed and what it is capable of doing. So